Hello. Happy Friday, August 30th, 2024. The Friday before Labor Day weekend here in the States. I thought I'd come on. I was feeling a little reflective of the moment. I don't know if I'll talk a lot about astrology, maybe a little bit, but more about maybe the opportunity of this moment we find ourselves in and great ways of using it. So, I was sitting here, I was thinking about Pluto because Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008 and it will be moving out for good this fall in November into Aquarius for the next 20 years. So I was thinking about, well, how would I, there's only a couple months left of it hanging around in this area. I mean, it's technically in Aquarius right now, but it's retrograding back. On the 4th of September, it will re-enter Capricorn. So that's kind of a big deal because it's at the 29th degree, which is an important degree. It was sitting at that degree a good part of last year, which was important for a whole lot of reasons. But it's going to be there until it turns direct, and it will be doing all of this right around our election here. So and that feels very on purpose and supportive in one way or another. So, I was looking at the fact that when I, reflect back to 2008 and just who I was fundamentally and the changes that have happened since then and who I see myself as, if I were to sit in front of myself from 2008 and have a conversation with myself, I don't even, I can't comprehend what that experience would even be like. I was at the time living in Manhattan. I had just gotten hired at Goldman Sachs as a wellness director the day after the election. Obama was elected. And, that was his first term, by the way, his first term. So that was monumental and for a lot of reasons at that time. And like just the work I would do, and I wasn't just working a 9 to 5, I was working a 7 to 8, kind of job at the time. I was married. I had, at the time had been gone through separation. We were back together. We ended up getting divorced in 2010. I left my corporate job. I ended up moving cross country. I went back to school for acupuncture and went on to become a clinician. I had already been in the wellness world, for about 12 years before that, with yoga, and I was a health counselor and had done a lot of different things in that world. I had a health counseling practice as well before I was back in corporate America again. And I think about just how moving to Portland changed my life, how divorce changed my life, how learning the Eastern medical philosophy compared to the Western, which they're not, I don't even know if I call that a philosophy in the Western traditions. But like to fundamentally have to unlearn so much to learn Eastern medicine, having been raised by two parents that worked in the Western medical world, and particularly in hospitals. So there was all that. I had, been in quite a few relationships that were life-changing for me. The people that I had been involved with, very long-term relationships, between the marriage, and then there were 2 other major long-term relationships inside there. It could have easily been marriages. I then actually did get married to someone. We were divorced within the year. That's a whole long story. I won't get into all that. But I worked in multiple different parts of the medical world. I worked in a community clinic. I worked in private practice. I worked in multidisciplinary clinics. I wanted to see the gamut. I wanted to see how these different larger clinics were running their businesses compared to Western clinics, etc. I moved back to the East Coast after having a major medical emergency that pretty much was a near-death experience in 2017. My dog had died in 2016. Actually, today's the 8-year anniversary of her passing. A year after that, I moved back after having a very traumatic year, starting with her death, and then just a lot of things that happened that year. It's too long. There's a book coming at some point. But I moved back here. I went to go start a private practice for myself. Then the pandemic hit, and we all know how these past 4 years have been inside of that strange time, and how we've all been impacted 100 different ways. And then in this last year, in particular for me, I have done a lot of diving deep into my ancestral roots. I am someone who's been working with a mentor probably going on as many years as my dog has passed, because I started working with her just before she passed, so maybe in 2015, I think, is when I was introduced to this idea of ancestral trauma and healing that, and realizing I was someone who really, really struggled with that, and didn't know anybody around me that even talked about this, so it was life-changing to finally find someone who could understand what I was talking about. And then I proceeded to attract all of those people into my practice that have the same issue. Anyways, what I want to say is that all of these experiences, all that I learned in school, all that I learned in private practice, all that I've learned in these relationships, all that I learned through death in this last 16 years is like, I don't even know who that person is. As a matter of fact, I think I've lived 6 different lives since 2008. I'm a Capricorn rising, so Pluto, was first going through my 12th house prior to that. So it was like dealing with these like parts of me, the subconscious, unconscious, and hidden parts of myself. And then actually right when it hit my ascendant was right when my dog died. And that was the life-changing moment for me, where my identity changed. I mean, it was an actual moment where I realized I wasn't a dog owner, and I had been a dog owner my entire adult life. And to finally, to be there without her I didn't understand how to even move in the world, to be honest with you. It was very, very difficult for me. As someone who kind of roams this earth solo a lot of the time, she really was a major grounding point for me. And a lot of my life revolved around her and her needs, especially in those last years. So, fast forward to today, in these last couple months, I'm feeling kind of emotional about just everything I've been through and the person that I have become as a result of it. And I could have never predicted that all of those things that happened were needed to build this resilience in me for who I'm becoming, and for who I am being called upon to be, and that I set out to be as a soul in this lifetime. And, I'll never forget when I was really, really young, like when people would ask me what was my dream, is I said I've always wanted to change the world. I've always wanted to really, really help people. Like, that was it. As long as I was doing those 2 things, I was happy. But I ironically at the time didn't have, I didn't look around my life and see all of these issues, that I saw so many other people dealing with. Maybe it was parents going through a divorce, or, mental and emotional issues at a certain level. I had my issues going on. They were just hidden at the time, as we all do. But I remember thinking, God, if only some bad things would happen to me, then I would be more relatable to people when I want to help them. Because are they going to take me seriously as someone who's not had a lot of X, Y, and Z? And little did I know that I was waiting for a life of experiences that were going to help prepare me for this position I find myself in now, which is, now being more of a mentor and a guide to others, being a teacher, someone who, one of my other mentors passed away in 2021, and I cannot tell you how much that has impacted the work that I do now, because I believe she's channeling astrology right through me in a way that I had been studying it for 15 years prior to this, but maybe even almost 20, but I didn't understand it and could not integrate it or facilitate it or explain it in a way that had been explained to me. So I just find it wild that I'm sitting here talking about astrology at this point in this kind of way, like my mentor Joanne, who I miss dearly. And I, at times like this, as we're going through such a planetary shift, I wish she could just be sitting here in front of me and we could just geek out on it. I'm grateful for the conversations we did have, though, that last year before her death. They were very rich. Anyways, I digress. There's probably going to be some activity in the background of children, just FYI. But I wanted to basically talk about, now that I'm finishing up my own chapter of identity shifting, and it's going to be moving into my second house, it's technically going to be in my first house for a while, in one system. In another system, it technically will be entering my second house, which is self-worth and value and material and money. And so those areas of my life are going to be going through major transformation next. So you can look for yourself to see where is Capricorn in your astrological chart, and that will give you an indication, depending on the house that it's in, as the area that's been going through a transformative experience since 2008, these last 16 years. So why am I bringing this up? Because, like I said, on the 4th, it is going to move back into this 29th degree of Capricorn. And then it's going to move forward into Aquarius. But it was lingering at that 29th degree of Capricorn most of last year. And it's going to be sitting there for all of us in the United States during our election as it's, season as it's moving forward. The actual date, I don't know offhand that it moves officially into Aquarius. I'm pretty sure it is in November, though. I can take a quick look. Let's see. November 19th, 2024. So the other thing that's going to be happening is we're going to have our two eclipses, one on September 19th and one on October 2nd, the eclipses for the fall. And I feel like these are going to be potent just because of this activity that's going on with Pluto right now. So I thought I would just pose that for you as taking some time right now to realize you're finishing up the last couple months of a major chapter of your life, of our life as a collective. We can look collectively here in the United States as an example, what's been going on since 2008, and pretty much Obama was elected around that time. And Wall Street crashed, the housing crash, bailouts for the airlines and for the auto industry and the banks, and you can just start seeing all the infrastructure, Capricorn, kind of getting blown up. And what'll be left is what's authentic. So as it moves into Aquarius, we are going to be talking more about technology. We're going to be talking about things like our AI and the moral values that and values that are associated with that movement into Aquarius, into this movement of artificial intelligence and technology. How are we going to allow it to help us, and how are we going to allow ourselves to have some boundaries with it? I think that's one of the biggest things I am realizing as we're moving forward, that I want to be really cognizant of, that if I'm here to help people, then I have to also fundamentally realize that using technology in this way and using social media in this way, I'm inviting more people to continue to engage on these very addictive platforms. And it doesn't always feel good. It's something I've honestly struggled with for probably a good 10 years, because I've always felt drawn to be on the internet and to be putting these messages here for the right people, because I don't think my message is for the masses, but it is for a particular group of people, and I don't know that they're always in my immediate environment. But I do have always struggled with the addictions, and I have them myself, to tech and social media, and the dopamine hits we get from likes and people, commenting or engaging or not. And the thing I'm facing as well is that I have, particularly in the last 3 years, really gone through a major deconditioning process where I don't assume anything to be the truth anymore. I question everything I say I believe in, because As time has gone on, I have really seen the lack of sustainability of so much, and I have seen behind the scenes or behind the curtain, could you say? As someone who was an entrepreneur in an alternative medical field during the pandemic, I saw a lot. I saw a whole lot that I can't unsee. And I saw a whole lot when I was working at Goldman Sachs. I saw a whole lot working in clinics of every different level. There's so much I have seen. I've probably had conversations. Well, I know when I was in the community clinic, I probably treated at least close to 8,000 patients just in that year or two. Never mind my private practice and such, but let's call it like 15,000 people. I don't know. I really don't know. I've collected a lot of data, qualitative data from humans. And what I know for sure is that we can't use quantitatives to get out of this. We can't use research in the way that we've been taught research. It's not really research. It's not objective most of the time. I had to go back into what I would say is, I'd say for me, a big part of going back to Ireland in the last year, I spent 5-6 months in Ireland over 23 and 24 at an art residency. And that art residency was really, really a major impetus for me to take myself seriously, to take my creative abilities seriously, to put a lot of my life on hold. And I kept hearing this message over and over again, you need to be the model, you need to be the model. And it would infuriate me. I'm not even kidding. I feel like I've had to be a model for certain things, in so many ways, it's like, when is enough? I'm just like, you get sick of having to be the first to do something. But then I realized, I was born with basically in a balsamic moon, but practically a new moon. The moon was just behind the sun when I was born, which means it was very dark in the sky. And those of us that are born during that time, we are here to initiate. We are here to lead ourselves, because there's no light guiding us. We have to lead ourselves. And I've always hated that. It took a very long time for me to find the appropriate mentors for the life that my soul has chosen to live. And I think I haven't even scratched the surface of the amount of risk taking I need to do. But for many people, they will look at, me just picking up and leaving and, letting go of my apartment and now, doing house sitting. I've been staying at this home for the last 7 weeks. I'm lining up things for the next 7 months in that department, because I don't really have an interest in getting back into that rhythm that gets very autopilot and can feel quote unquote settled. There is an importance in being grounded and feeling grounded to the earth. There is another thing to be so grounded to it that you don't look up and around. And I'm very earthy. I've got a lot in earth. I've got my Capricorn rising, I've got my sun, I've got my moon, I've got my Chiron, I've got my IC in Taurus. And here we are in Virgo season. So I have a lot of earth. I have a lot also in fixed signs. So that's, Scorpio, Leo. My ruling planet is in Leo with my Mars. And my midheaven, my career point is in Scorpio with Uranus. And so I have a lot of placements in fixed signs, which can be very inflexible. So I purposely am trying to work with that part of myself to not, because it's so easy to get into the groove of some rhythm and just try to ride that only to realize 6 months goes by and either you haven't accomplished what you wanted or you're back into the same habits, whatever it is. So I've been trying to force myself since April of 2023 to approach life more from a 3 or 4 month window. And it's been beautiful because it, one, allows me to really hyper focus on the intention of that time and how I want to use it. And that also to stay refreshed by the idea that every day is going to present something new. And I don't know where I'm going. And I'm proud to not know where I'm going. I have no issue saying I don't know where I'm going, because that's the truth for all of us. We really don't know where we're going. And so it's imperative that we break the illusion and the delusion that of what we think security is. You know, it's time to realize that, like, those things that we think we have security in, those systems, those structures that Pluto has fundamentally destroyed in Capricorn, they're not there anymore. That healthcare system, it's not there to provide health to people there. It's great in emergencies, but even now, because it's so like a shack that's fallen over with very few pillars left, because it's been hijacked by corporate and pharmaceutical greed. It's been, you know, all the hospitals have been bought out by companies, so medicine has become for profit. I, as someone who, even working on the eastern side of things, this week is the last week my acupuncture school is open. It was the #1 school when I went in 2011, and remained that until I graduated in 2014. And here we are 10 years later, and it's closed. We have ballooned so much. You know, I remember in the hospitals, like in the very big, early years of managed care, when someone would go to get a scan and what they would charge for that scan or whatever, like that, it's all ballooned. They balloon it out. And then I moved, like as an example, back to New Jersey just to see that all these acupuncturists were charging $450 to $500 for their treatments to bill insurance because they could. And then they wondered why they stopped getting good payouts, decent payouts. Like we don't know how to walk with a moral compass with us. Like it's like we're always going to be tempted to shortcut, to try to get something for nothing or do as little as possible for that thing. But I can tell you that is not where the gold is. The gold is digging in and taking risks, making major mistakes, because at least with mistakes you can say you tried. With it's all just philosophical or talking or like one day in your head. Trust me, those 20 years go by very, very quickly. And we become less capable as we age in certain regards. So if that, for instance, dream of yours is about traveling, if that dream of yours is about doing something that requires a ton of writing or intellect or whatever, that can get harder as we age. I think of it as our brain is a big, long card catalog. And every experience is adding more cards to that card catalog. So even recall, dementia or not, it becomes difficult. For those of us that are for women, when you go through perimenopause, that brain is not going to work the same way, as you're moving through these hormonal shifts. So I don't think we should be running in fear of time, but we should certainly respect it. We should certainly make the most of our time while we're here. And as we're wrapping up this Pluto chapter, it's really important to take note. Am I happy with what I've done in this last 16 years for myself? Could I have done more to honor myself or the people around me that I care about? Could I have done more to have taken bigger risks? Could I have done more to step out of the box and do something in a new way? So I'm going to be doing that. That is not going to be stopping. A lot of people keep asking, when am I going to X or when am I going to Y? I don't know. And I'm happy with that answer. So I encourage you to take this conversation with yourself seriously, because if it's not you having this proactive experience of reflection with yourself, something will come in and force your hand. You know, something that's how I've seen my life. Like, and it's not because I don't look at every time that's happened, it's because I missed something, but it's going to be there. It's coming one way or another. So the more that I can face this conversation of nothing is certain, nothing is secure outside of me and my faith, it gives me much more freedom to play. If I stop buying into these constructs that were created by humans, particularly greedy humans, if I stop living by those constructs, there's a lot of freedom available. So much freedom, it's confronting. So much freedom, it's confronting. And it will also have you feel more isolated, you know? So while I'm in a place, for instance, in this election season, I could care less about these candidates or the campaigns, or like, I don't care. Like, that stuff isn't of any interest to me. What's of interest to me is participating in the creation of new structures, and then being a person who will call people towards those structures. So, you know, I created a community garden with a group of people in 2019, 2020 really, is when it actually came to be. But like, that determination and that dedication was for me, because it wasn't about me being at that garden. I never actually had a box in that garden, you know. It was always about for the community and for the kids, and a place that people could go and have an experience that was outside of their normal day-to-day. And I would, you know, that very first year, I used to love hearing people say, like, it was their favorite place and their favorite moment to, like, get to stop from work, come to the garden, water before they went home, and like they had that time for themselves. So that's what we should be getting busy about, not getting busy about trying to keep one person out of the office. It doesn't matter. You're going to have one of these two parties doing their crap. So I just don't respect this time and energy and precious life we have wasted on trying to focus on one or two 70-plus-year-old men. Or the woman that's in that role now, that suddenly, she's looks like a magical character to everybody when she's previously not looked so good, and for a variety of reasons. So it's just very evident of this delusion, and that so many of you still put so much faith into that system as if it exists on your behalf. It does not. So I will be getting busy not talking about left and right and blue and red or any of that crap, because I did that for many years and it got me nowhere. And we're not getting anywhere, as you can tell. But what is getting somewhere is the mission of a very few amount of rich people. And so my rebelliousness is to not make more money for them. It's to put in infrastructure for the future. So I encourage you guys to stop playing these games that are not ones we're going to win. We won't win. You'll be made to feel like you've won at different times, only to basically realize what's happening. In the 4 years, those of you, that have gone by with this current administration, we're in charge of killing and funding war at an astronomical level. I don't know how you could support a person or a party that does that. So this is my point, is that this is what Aquarius is going to be about. It's going to be our moral values, our humanitarianism. It's going to be about how are we moving our species forward, not how are we going to keep working systems that are debunked. So that's the good news. It's a great time for creativity. It's a great time for creativity. It's a great time for you to make some big changes in your life that you've been aching for. So I encourage you to do that. All right, I'm hitting 30 minutes. I don't know how I do this every time, but I am putting this up for whoever it's for. But I encourage you to know. I'll come back on and talk more about the the eclipses and even Pluto multiple times between now and November. But just know September 4th, it's getting back into that Capricorn for that 29 degrees. So for all of y'all who've got those fixed and cardinal placements, you know, in the early degrees of the fixed and the late degrees of the cardinal, you're going to feel that more in particularly. But it won't feel new because that Pluto's been hanging around that degree pretty much all of last year. So we're going back for one last check-in before we move on. Make sure you check all the things you need to check off and let go of before we move into this new chapter. Be able to reflect on the last 16 years of your life and be proud of that, wherever it's led you. And with all the hardships, you know, what do those hardships teach you? Are you still a victim to those hardships? And that's something you got to look at. You got to look at that. Okay. All right. I think that's all I got for now. All right. Have a wonderful holiday weekend for those of you that are here in the United States who might have an extra day off. Good luck, everybody, next week who's sending their children to school. Those of you that already started this week, wishing you all well in the beginning of new rhythms with your kids. And yeah, I can't wait to share more. There's more coming. All right. Cheers, cheers.